Happy New Year to YouTube. If ever there was a night that I could care less about a holiday, it's this one. Definitely hard pass for me. But what a better way to spend it than with some awesome people talking about mutants. So we're doing a Ten of Swords breakdown, and I got Dan from Comic Chop News.
Howdy.
How's it going, Dan? So we're doing sorry. I got Chaos in Comics. Chris is here.
Hello.
We're high energy tonight.
We should hopefully be joined by Jennifer from Comic Books Will Break Your Heart, or Comics Will Break Your Heart, depending on where you're looking for her. She should be joining us here momentarily. Basically, these are the three people that I talk to each week about Ten of Swords. Whenever I would read a new issue, these were the people that I knew were reading all of them and were happy to break down the minutia. So thanks for hanging out tonight, guys.
I've been waiting to do this.
Yeah, this is exciting. Ten of Swords in general is, the whole X-Men Hickman thing I've been into. So anytime we talk about that, I'm happy to.
Awesome. Now, I put the links to everybody's channels down below, just so everybody knows. If you're looking for Dan or Chris or Jen, you can click down below and find their YouTube channels. I didn't do Instagrams, but obviously these guys know what's up. They've already got the @ symbol, and you can find them on Instagram very easily. Or you can ask me, and I'll help you find them on Instagram. No problem.
Is this the best Marvel crossover that we've had in a couple of years?
Ooh, let's start off with that. What a great question.
Because honestly, I can't remember one that really held up for me. That like Empire was garbage. It literally was garbage.
Crossover or event, because Hoxpox was pretty big itself, right? But it
didn't cross over into any other comic, right? It was just those two books.
Yeah.
Which was really just felt like one big book.
Multi-book event, I should say.
Multi-book event. I guess it would be Hoxpox would be the next one. Do you think Ten of Swords is better than House of X? Powers of 10?
No, definitely not.
No, I'd say like a multi-issue where this is 22 issues of multiple books you had to buy, where it was just the two books.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like because that was all so clearly written by Hickman, and this is so clearly written by a bunch of different people, it's like it's like I got the pure drugs and I got the like stuff that they sell on the street. So this was more street drugs, and House and Powers was like I was shooting.
But what's the comparison though? Because Empire was its own book with some tie-ins,
right?
So what's the comparison? Executioner Song from 1994.
I'd actually say the Avengers run by Hickman, I think, was like the last huge one that led to Secret Wars.
Yeah. I forgot to say hello to people in the chat. We had PJ King and Todd Christian tailgating. So thank you guys. And then Sick Rick just came in. Happy New Year's to you, sir. And ahoy to you, Captain Comics. Thank you for joining us. So appreciative of everybody coming by. Some Civil War II, meh. I was saying that for me, so there's two thoughts on what you're saying as far as how this compares to other events or other stories like this. I feel like you have to pick something with tie-ins. You have to pick something with many different titles all working together, because that's kind of the beast that they're wrangling here. Whereas House of 10 and Powers, it's just one writer doing a 10-issue story. And
Jen's in chat.
I see Jen. Yep. Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for putting up with me being fashionably late.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Look, there she is. Hello. So we're just talking a little bit of how you compare this to other Marvel, specifically Marvel events. And for me, I just look back at the last couple of years, and I would say I liked it more than Absolute Carnage, which I felt like fell apart at the end for me. I liked it more than War of the Realms, although I do have a soft spot for War of the Realms. I do think it's a little crapped on, and I did enjoy it.
He's not comic for his comment.
He's not in the garage, right? He's not.
I'm in the garage.
Are you?
Here's my car.
What? He is in the garage. That's hilarious.
I'm always
hello, Brian, and hello, aggressively relaxing. So for me, like I compared it to War of the Realms. That was the easiest one I could compare it to, where you had a clear person at the chart, like the head of the table, right? Jason Aaron or Jonathan Hickman running that show, but at the same time, a ton of people writing individual issues under that umbrella, and a bunch of titles carrying on with it. So that was the closest connection I could find, and I thought this was superior. But
so that was though. So then the only event that we're not counting is Hoxpox, because then the rest of them are like that. Like Hoxpox was very special in that everything shut down and it was the one story all the way down. So any event that isn't Hoxpox, essentially, then I think so. I actually think Absolute Carnage ended better than it started, and same with War of the Realms, by the way. I thought the ending books were good, where both those writers were able to do the thing they were going to do, and like it was just so messy with tie-ins in the early books.
Yes.
But and I think that this one's real special because it felt like a throwback to the 90s. Because what's different about the books that the events that you're talking about, is that it's 6 issues and then a bunch of tie-ins. You know, this is actually, to me, closer to Hoxpox because it's sequential order of issues. They just happen to go through the monthly titles. But you do need to read them pretty much, maybe not the beginning where they're fighting the swords, but pretty much in order.
Right.
But I think, yeah, except I don't know if we're counting Hoxpox or not, but except for that, I think it is, because it is it's unifying essentially. It doesn't just spread out, you know, even though Hellion spreads out a little bit. Yeah. It is one.
Yeah, we can get into like that too, like how it spreads out a little bit. How about some, like, if you were going to score it out of 10 for your just enjoyment as the reader, and Jennifer just jumped in here, I'm going to make her go straight from work to like great. If you were going to score this event for yourself, just for your enjoyment as the reader, how would you grade it?
I feel like I typically grade things pretty high, because if I just enjoy something, I almost just want to say 10. There were like 2 or 3 weeks, like Dan knows, like there were 2 or 3 weeks.
You hated Hellions. You hated Hellions.
I 100% hated like anything to do with Hellions. 0 out of 10 was not enjoyable for me whatsoever. But there were so many like magical moments. I would say if I had to give it a score, I'm going to give it maybe an 8 out of 10, just because I enjoyed it. Like, sure, there were weeks where I was like, what the fuck just happened here? But like for the most part, I enjoyed it. I'm just, you know.
I mean, I think I scored it on when I finished the blog on it. I think I finished out at an 8.5 out of 10, somewhere in that range. What about you, Dan? Where would you start out for this one?
So I was sitting at an 8, and then today when I was rereading all 22 issues of it, Apocalypse crying, I gave it an extra 0.5 for that, because this is actually like, this might be the best Apocalypse story that we've gotten.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I'm currently reading Age of Apocalypse for the very first time, and obviously he is a big figure in that, but so far he hasn't been in the story to the level in this story. Right?
The Executioner's song might have been one of his bigger ones, maybe.
But I feel like even then he was always like the background shadow villain. He was never like so much in the forefront like he is in this.
Also, Jen, how come you're not in front of your bookcase, or you just don't want to admit your defeat in front of it?
Comics broke my back. So yeah, I don't know like what's going on, and anyways, my bookshelf is not in like working order right now, and this is like my workspace, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hang out here. I know I can sit in this chair. So,
what about you, Chris? What was your score for this?
I'm gonna go 8.5. But just talking about that, what Dan just said about Apocalypse, I think they did great humanizing Apocalypse, but there's another part of me that goes, you know, Apocalypse really was supposed, you know, you could humanize Magneto. Magneto could be a good guy or a bad guy. He was the guy where you can know both sides, but Apocalypse was supposed to be like, you know, the Hitler version of that, you know. And they sort of just, you know, and I love it and I accept it, and I, you know, the whole Hickman thing, I just run with it. But it is a little bit weird. But we ended up getting is what this Apocalypse ended up being, you know, Apocalypse with a heart ended up being, you know, a little bit of Magneto, you know, like just what Magneto is. Because now what's the difference between Magneto and Apocalypse? except that Apocalypse will kill something a little bit quicker.
Jen and I talked about how there was a lot of East to West vibes near the end.
Especially, I mean, for me, there was East of West vibes from the beginning, and East of West is what got me into Jonathan Hickman and why I feel like I have so much trust in him as head of X. I love that, like, he's announced, or like in the books he's like head of X. Like, how the hell do you get that title? Like, how do I get like head of X title? But yeah, like with the info dumps that he does, the Hickman dumps where he just gives you this crazy backstory, or you see this crazy timeline. So I loved seeing, one, that to me just gave me East of West vibes, and two was kind of a shout or a throwback to Hoxpox, where you do see like these crazy timelines, or like, you know, here's where we are now. I love that.
So, I mean, we're not really doing like a real strict organized discussion about this, but I'd love to start with some of the things that we all really loved about it, because obviously we gave it some pretty high grades, which for a Marvel event, let's be honest, they don't often get scores that are anywhere near that. So that's pretty impressive. So, like, Chris, what were, if you had to pick just a couple of things that really made this work for you, what would you say?
I think, well, just because I know I'm going to bring this one up, just because I know we're going to talk about specifically the writing, since we're all fans of that. But the way Apocalypse was drawn in every book except for Excalibur, especially the X-Men books, and really through the whole series. So I think for the human Apocalypse we got, he probably looked the most menacing he has. I forget who's drawing X-Men. It was mostly R.B. Silva, right? I think.
I believe, and then Larraz did Creation and a couple of the other ones.
It is Pepper Larraz's version of Apocalypse looks so menacing,
right?
And so that's probably one of my pluses. I know we're going to talk a lot about the
Lionel Yu as X-Men.
So in both really they did it. The only one where it didn't, where he looked like a cartoon character, was Excalibur, and that was a little bit weird. You know, jumping art styles is a little bit weird for a unified.
Which I think has always been the hurdle of good events. I think is like, how do you balance art styles across? I mean, that was one of the things that drove me crazy about the Extinction Agenda when I was reading that as like a kid. Was like, I would be like, Jim Lee is slaying this, and then I'd get an X Factor issue and be like, what the? Who is drawing this shit? Right? Yeah. It was like you would go from the greatest art into just like complete garbage, and it was like, wow. And I felt like they avoided that, like you're saying. I think they avoided that a little bit.
Mostly, you know, but you have that like style that Cassara has in X-Force, and that we got in X-Men, and then in the, you know, the prologues and the epilogue books. But then you'd hop over to like, you know, X Factor also. Although I like some of the art in there, but Excalibur to me was the biggest negative contrast.
Very much.
It was like a colorful cartoon, you know, and then you'd go to the next one, and then Apocalypse would be menacing again, you know. So,
what about you, Dan? What were some of the things that were real pluses for you?
So, the humanizing of Apocalypse with his wife, and the flashbacks of like even her, she's going, "You can't come with us because you're weak." Like the man who's always been, you know, survival of the fittest. All of a sudden, it's like his wife's like, "Oh no, sweetie, you can't come along. Go find stronger people, okay?"
Right. Yeah. If you ever thought there would be someone colder and more unsympathetic than Apocalypse, well, hey, he got married.
Gorgon was very much a positive for me, because I don't ever feel like they flesh out his character in the books, and like the way he went down in it, like swinging.
What an amazing, yeah.
And they had that scene where he's like, I get invited to these ceremonies, they're blood ceremonies, but I've never had my swords called out by name before, so I have to show up. Like, right. I just have to.
That was a great scene. And a clever way to get them, you know, to get the score back up.
Yes. Well, and doesn't he's the one that like runs off and screws the sirens too in that one scene in the
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Well, Wolverine's like, we better get out of here. I think he's gonna go F that rock.
Magic had a ton of like one-liner moments that I loved.
Yeah.
The one where she's like, "Oh, this is like medieval times but shittier." Like I loved, like she's just so sassy.
Yeah.
And A scene that I shouldn't love, but I love, was Cable crying for his mommy and daddy.
That was weird.
Yeah,
He's so cocksure all the time and like so like completely like egotistical. Where all of a sudden he doesn't, and he's just like, "Mom, help!"
Something has never sold me on like was it F-boy Cable? Jennifer calls him. I've never
yeah.
I just like old man Cable. There's something I love about having like Scott's and Jean's son being older than them. I just like it. I'm entertained by it, and I don't want him as a kid. I don't want it.
That's probably the weirdest thing of this series, though. So I mean, everyone hated Kid Cable when I read it when it happened in, I think, Extermination. I was like, oh, people are gonna hate this, and that makes me like sort of like things a little more when I know. But what's really weird about it is that Hickman just decided to make them like make him a son and him to act like he's a murderous bastard too. Like he came from the future and killed the version of himself. Spoiler alert if you haven't read that, he killed Kid Cable. Yeah. And then everyone just accepted him, so that was weird. And then he just immediately was like daddy and being a son. Like there's no reason for that to happen. But it's funny. It's just as far as I know, it was never explained why he suddenly just starts, have this like this regular son relationship with Cyclops.
Bueller, my buddy Bueller's in the chat. Thanks for coming by, Bueller. I appreciate that. Jen, I'm sorry we didn't get to you. What were some of the things I know you're a big Cable fan.
I'm hearing you guys say like, I don't understand like young Cable, and I'm like, I am so here for like F-boy Cable. I'll try to like reduce the expletives. So F-boy Cable has my heart. I should not like him. He on paper is such a twerp, but I like seeing the character development where you want to hate him, or I kind of want to hate him so much, but for me it works. And like Dan said, that moment where he's defeated and he's crying out for his parents, I felt like that was, that character development. So I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, Magic with all of her just sassy Magic moments. I thought that was like each issue, despite some of the weeks where it was just like, what is going on? Like Magic is, I think, what kept me just going back into it and being so invested in it. And I need more of Magic.
I feel like I've always appreciated the way different writers have used her as a character. Like in the New Mutants stuff that Claremont and Sienkiewicz were doing, I've really enjoyed her there. I feel like she's been one of those characters that has always, I think, been a nice counter note to some of the other typically more serious X-Men characters,
I love her too, and I've just fallen in love with her more. She was like one of the only good things about the New Mutants movie too.
Yes.
Oh, which I still haven't seen yet.
Oh yeah,
buddy,
it's there.
It tried too many things and didn't specialize in one. Can we talk about the Noble game, the Noble contest?
The most noble, yeah. I find it funny though that Jennifer just disliked Hellion so much, and I loved it, and I didn't care for Kid Cable, and she loved it. So it's kind of fun that like we all have our like we get our comedy or our enjoyment from different places. Because for me, it made me go back and start getting all the issues of Hellions I missed. I was like, I need all of it now.
Did you read it? Did you read the beginning Hellions? I like those.
Missing issue 1, so I have not gone back and read much of them yet.
Oh well, I'll give you the download code if you want to read issue 1, and you can get it eventually. But I liked it. Some people don't. But I like the little Hellions.
I found everything I've read so far hilarious. So
Jen, did you just put baby hands on your fingers?
I did. My weird friend knows that I'm weird, and gave me these baby hands, and you can play rock, paper, scissors with them. So you said rock, paper, scissors, and I just had to pull them out.
It's the Noble contest.
The Noble contest.
Oh my gosh. What about did you guys have any like favorite issues or moments that you wanted to highlight? Anything that you were like, this like shocked me, or this like was hilarious, or what have you? I mean, I will start by saying, like, I was surprised how much I enjoyed Wolverine across like his arc through this. He was not a pivotal part. He ended up being this sort of background player who, even when he won, he cost his team points. Like he was always kind of the loser in that way, the grand loser.
So I like twice.
Yeah, I like the way he was used in this story, especially his first solo issue, which I think was a great entry point into the whole
going through hell.
Yeah, I really enjoyed all of that. So for me, I was surprised at how much joy I got from Wolverine in this whole thing, even when he was killing Lady Saturnine and in the dinner scene, only to find out that it was just her illusion. I dug all of it and thought it was really well done.
I saw people saying that, by the way, in that issue, I saw people saying that was such an obvious ending. And I'm like, they basically said it was going to happen to the whole issue. Like the whole issue was talking about it. Like it wasn't supposed to be a surprise, guys. I mean, I know none of you guys said it, but I remember
I wasn't surprised that she wasn't dead, that she was playing him.
Yeah.
Like, none of it surprised me, but it didn't mean I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably the part that excited me the most, and I wanted to find the panel, was at the end of part 1, where Magic didn't even have to get her sword. Obviously, she's holding it, and
she's just standing there. She's like, "All right, what's going down?
Where is everybody?"
Yeah, but she said something cool, like "Let's pound the war drums" or something like that. And that at the end of that issue, that made me really excited for it. I didn't know that it was going to be a little bit more of a comedy kind of thing, which I still loved. But when Magic did that and walked down, and she's just the first one on Rock Slide, which we should talk about too, by the way, that she's the first one on there. That got me real excited. Like I could hear the drums pounding. I wanted the next week to come so I can get the next, the 3 books. You know what I mean? So I was really excited.
Hey, Craig, thanks for coming by, man. What about you, Jen? Was there a moment or a scene or a story arc that you were like really blown away by?
The one thing that surprised me, I would say, and this was towards the end, and maybe it's just because I have such a fondness for this character and was not expecting it, is Jubilee is one of my favorite characters. And when Jubilee shows up, I think that for me, that just kind of hit me out of nowhere. I will die on the hill that she is underutilized. And when she is utilized, like, I don't know, maybe it's a blend of I'm surprised and I'm glad that she showed up, but I'm disappointed. I wish that there was more, because just for her dragon son to be taken away, and like that, I don't know. I was so happy that she showed up, but I feel like she was underutilized.
And Dan, what about you?
There is a moment of comedy in here that I appreciate more than anything, where they're at that giant dinner and Doug was poisoned, and Apocalypse is turning to Genesis like, "Well, you've done a great job raising them, huh?" And she's like, "Look, I did the best I could."
Yeah, and behind them in the background, everybody's fighting or yelling at each other, like throwing food and stuff.
Also, the white sword, when he had Death and I think it was Pestilence come and beg, or maybe it was Famine, but he's like, "I want to see you beg." They're like, "We're not going to do that." He's like, "But you're here asking me to help, so I've waited a century for this." And the whole thing where where they poison Doug and he heals me. He's like, "I'm not even going to make you one of my 100. Like, I'm not going to bring you back as my slave because I'm a good guy. You should all be ashamed of yourselves."
Well, I mean, and that for me connects to like some of the twists that I enjoyed, things that I wasn't expecting. And I felt like the biggest hurdle for me going into this and starting to read the issues was that it was not in any way what I thought it was going to be. Right. Like I was going into this expecting a lot of fights. I was expecting a ton of sword play, like that it would be all centered around these swords fighting. And yet it became this almost lighthearted comedic oddity of board games, almost like they were playing these silly role play games the whole time. And so getting over my own expectations was a big part of this. How did you guys balance your expectations? Were there twists that caught you by surprise that shocked you? Chris, what do you think?
As far as generally what you just said, I mean, a long time ago when I understood almost nothing that was happening in Hoxpox, I was like, my attitude towards the whole Hickman run has been, I'm just going to strap in and see what happens. Then when he's gone and done, I'll look back on it. And I've just found a lot more enjoyment that way. So when it did become quirky, I actually loved when it made that. There's that little section where you didn't like it as much, John, and that's when I really loved it. After Stasis, when it did become quirky, I mean, I guess my mind was ready for it because I don't know what Hickman's going to do. To be honest, I don't even know how he's going to tie up anything that he did in Hoxpox with these last 10 or so issues. So that I liked. That wasn't a hurdle for me because I'm like in the roller coaster now. I'm just going to see where the next turn is. As far as moments, I think actually what we just talked about, like it took, there was little jokes here, Hellions, whether you liked it or not, here and there. But after Stasis, when they started scoring and you figured out that Saturnine was just playing this weird, omniscient person game that can do whatever she wants, and it got really quirky. That's where, it made me laugh. At least I was laughing at some of those games and some of the clever ways that she was scoring, especially like the aforementioned Wolverine losing. I think that was in the, second set of those and stuff like that.
The Magic Pogger Pog fight was the one like they kept building up to it. I was like, what is going on here? Like,
and they ended up getting 2 rounds, right? They had like 2 rounds of it.
Yeah, they did it twice, and then there was a little thing inside of there. So
it was a bunch of twists there that I wasn't expecting. Yeah, Dan, what about you? Twists? So were there any twists where you were like, "Oh my god, what is going on here?"
So Solemn, who they built up, and like speculators were like, "Oh, new Wolverine villain. This guy's gonna be awesome," which I still think going down the road, he's going to be a main player, especially since he has a sword that will kill anything, and so does Wolverine. And we know his adamantium skin can be cut by it. So I feel like it's going to come back. The one that kind of like disappointed, like the Pogger Pog fight, like really disappointed. And I thought Iska was underused considering how much they built up. Like she can't lose. We do all these little parlor games with them challenging her, and we never really see her do anything.
No.
Except for Betsy getting broken into glass and never appearing again.
And Jen, were there any like big twists for you that you were like, "Oh wow, didn't see that coming," or that you really enjoyed, or maybe that you just hated? You're like, "This is stupid."
Again, like I never expected Gorgon. Just to him to have that moment.
Yeah.
But Jen. Yeah.
Oh, I think for a series that I would highly recommend, gave such a high rating to, and I think for asking people to invest their time and money, like 3 issues a week for however many months, that's a lot for people. There were a lot of moments that I did hate, like as Dan and I were going through the weeks, there were a lot of moments that I really hated. One of the moments, so there were so many moments that I was really surprised by and didn't like, but one of the moments that kind of threw me for a loop, if I can be a person under 80 that uses that term, would be when, oh my God, the marriage. I was like, That's one of the moments where I was like, wait, what? So all of a sudden, and I'm blanking on the characters' names, but the marriage episode or the marriage. Doug. Yeah, like that one, I was so like, what is going on here? But I had a lot of what's going on here moments, but that was definitely one of the beginning ones because that was about the halfway point, I think, at that point. So it's like, wait, is this going to get started? Are people going to die? Wait, he's marrying her? So that was kind of a weird moment.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, for me, that was like the pinnacle of me saying, okay, I just got to follow basically what Chris is saying and just buckle in for enjoying this, not being the fighting, dark, brooding X-Men storyline, but instead being this oddity, right? This sort of, I would say early Claremont, like bizarre.
But it goes dark again at the end, though. Like it gets real dark.
Moments, but not nearly as dark as I thought it was going to be. Hey, Oregon, and PJ King agrees on Jubilee being a great character that Marvel kind of dropped the ball on in later years. So,
Jennifer, did you read the new issue of X-Men?
The new X-Men,
the one from yesterday.
I
you
have
read that?
not read any of my
Okay.
comics this week.
There's so many things you guys
So
just mentioned. Neither have they. They haven't read the new X-Men yet. There's so many things that you guys just mentioned that makes me just want to mention that issue. So read it after this.
Nice. I can't even remember where I put my new books this week, so they're around here somewhere.
I've got
Okay.
it local.
Let's talk some negatives. Like, what were some of the things that maybe were a little more frustrating, or that you didn't enjoy, that you weren't as happy with? I will say, for me, like the biggest thing I wanted more big long-term changes to happen, whether that was characters dying, whether that was characters changing in significant ways. I kind of wanted just something that would push the Krakoa universe further, amp it up somewhat. So I was a little disappointed that it never really reached that level. I was expecting more deaths, of course, but even then I was partly expecting characters to come back Hickmanized, retconning in his own way these characters that when they were resurrected would be these amalgams of whatever that Hickman wanted them to become for the short term. So I was a little disappointed by that.
I feel like when Hickman is writing these characters, or whether it's him being head of X or someone else doing these characters, head of 10, whatever. So whenever he does these characters, I feel like he sat down and was like, if I could rewrite this character, what makes sense? So like we do these like retcons of characters that aren't, big changes in a major way that I think a lot of people complain about when reboots happen. So a lot of people have been like, they're sold on these reboots with the way that Hickman's writing.
Carlito's slamming me. He says, I'm here to support good people. Could give a crap about this title. Sorry, not sorry. There you go. It's okay. It's not, X-Men's not for everybody, brother.
This is revenge for Tenet.
It is his revenge for me giving him a little grief on Tenet, which I still really enjoyed, and I ended up watching twice in one day just to kind of like make sure I had a grasp of it. But hilarious.
Tenet's the same attitude, by the way. You got to just go into Christopher Nolan movies the same way. And I just described going into a Hickman X-Men. Like, like don't try to connect them. Like
Just
even
go.
if Memento is your most down to earth movie, then you're probably sick. But
yeah. That would be a twisted place to be. Although I do really love that movie.
I love that movie too.
Insomnia. That was two of the ones I was like arguing back and forth on because they're early Nolan, and I know we're not here to talk about Nolan movies, so let's.
This is free form. We're free form here a little bit, but Dan, what is it that took this from being a 10 for you? What were some of the things that dropped it down for you?
Every Excalibur issue.
Really?
Like, there's bloat in this. There is serious bloat that there's some stuff that they could have probably put 3 pages into another book. X Factor, almost with the whole resurrection of Rockslide, I think could have slid into another book just a little bit shorter. But I understand what they needed to do to get the prophecy out. But Excalibur it irritated me. Between the art style and some choices they made in the writing, I got aggravated.
That's interesting because that's Teenie Howard. So she was like, basically vice president of that the whole story.
Of this event too, right? In a big way.
Yeah. She was on creation and all the like main like destruction stasis. And again, it was a frustrating title to read just because sometimes like we didn't understand the Jubilee death, but Chris explained it to us that
let's get into that.
Get into it.
I will say I still don't fully understand this.
Let me do one more thing for Excalibur too. Is I sort of get it because I think if you were to rate people at that were reading all the X books, I'm pretty sure. I know Fallen Angels would probably be last, but the ones that continued, I'm pretty sure Excalibur would be towards the bottom. So a lot of people, John included, when they were getting ready, excited for 10 of Swords, they're like, oh, you mean all this stuff has been being explained in Excalibur? Like everything that involved Apocalypse trying to
External Gate
was all Excalibur, which was, I don't like to think of it. I'm trying not to rank them, but for most people was one of the weaker books,
Right.
And so I just wanted to point that out, but we can get to Jubilee now too. So like the Excalibur thing really is not for me, but I can tell like for the zeitgeist of X-Men fans, one of the weaker books. And it's interesting that, the main thread of Ten of Swords really came through there, with only one or two X-Men issues that were, that explained it, with what's his name, the white dude, Summoner.
Yeah. So we have Jubilee at one point. We have Jubilee and the Excalibur Corps breaking in and sort of attacking King Jaime. And in the scuffle, he sort of takes control of the situation, grabs her and executes her. And they don't really give us any more information about it until at the end, she pops out of nowhere. In between, of course, nobody mentions that she's dead or that there's a funeral or that people are sad or whatever. And then she pops up in Destruction at the end with her kid dragon rolling into the fighting.
So she was with a bunch of witches. That's where she was pre-Ten of Swords.
Okay.
And the Jubilee that died was just a multiverse version of her that was Captain Marvel.
When did they say this?
I mean, they didn't say it. It was just a bunch of bad guys dressed up as Excalibur characters, dressed up as, you know what I mean?
This was pre-Ten of Swords.
No. Those characters, those Excalibur version of characters that were Captain Britain, it just wasn't clear. So I was unclear too when I read it. Later on, when Jubilee showed back up, I go, oh yeah, Jubilee was with these witches. She was with these other people in Otherworld, like taking care of her son. That's a dragon. So in earlier issues of Excalibur, I was like, oh yeah, that's where she's been this whole time. And that made me realize, and it was not clear, so don't feel bad about it, but that made me realize that when it was Jaime, right? When Jaime fights those versions of Excalibur characters, they're just multiverse. They're just different. It's like a Captain Britain Gambit.
Which is kind of what we see when the Corps comes back at the end of Destruction. It's a sort of collection of them.
Yeah, except they're all Betsy at the end. So that's who's protecting now. Is the multiverse, an infinite number of Betsy, or not Betsy.
So then a version of Jubilee from another dimension did die.
Yeah, that was a Captain Britain, and obviously some kind of evil Captain Britain. Or there was some reality warping maybe going on. I'd have to read the issue. But when I saw her come back, like do the almost Deus Ex, it wasn't quite a Deus Ex Machina because she came back. She came back towards the end. She came back in the Act 3. When I go, oh yeah, Jubilee has not been with the Excalibur people this whole time. She was with
I would still put that in the negative column for this, in that they still haven't explained it. That they just kind of ran with it and just dropped it.
Yeah, it's jagged. You know what I mean? If they would have explained that it was like some evil multiverse versions, then we would have just left it alone. But certainly for us, we were like, we didn't want to tell Alec and stuff. You know what I mean? That
I was like, oh man, he's gonna be so pissed. Well, he's a comic book reader, so his first response was, yeah, she'll be back.
Yeah, in some way, but yeah, so it wasn't her. It was someone from
I'm glad that it wasn't explicitly said somewhere, and I just missed it, because I still feel like I'm waiting for somebody to drop the dime on this. But
yeah, I read it, I was like, they're not going to go back and say anything about this. No one's going to say a damn word about this.
Yeah, it's too cold. I like your aggressively relaxing read it too. So I mean, I'd like to hear his take on it if he's still in here. But
he had mentioned something earlier, but it's been a little while.
Oh, okay. So if he is, then. But yeah, I think it was just not. It wasn't the Jubilee we thought. I thought so too. I thought that they just gave them mutant. That would have been unexplained too. By the way, because Rogue and Gambit were off in the mansion somewhere, right? It would have been weird also just to have them all come together.
They appeared there too. Yeah. But I mean, for me, it was part and parcel with why I stopped reading Excalibur, because I felt like they were dropping the ball on a lot of things. I am legitimately still holding a grudge about Rogue Apocalypse, and I'm not going to give up on this.
It looked awesome, though. She looked awesome.
Dude, even if they'd just given us 2 issues of Apocalypse wasn't resurrected yet, or even if he was mentoring her, and she had part of his personality, part of his powers, and part of his just whatever. And
you wanted more.
I wanted to see, Gambit saying, I don't know if I can kiss you like this. I wanted all of it. I wanted all
you
of
wanted
it.
more Rogue Apocalypse. That was my problem in Absolute Carnage, when Carnage took over Hulk, and it's like the first time that happened, and it was the cliffhanger.
Right.
And then it was done in two panels. You know, that could be its own event.
I just wanted like 2 issues of like them fighting. She's got new powers. She's got a bit of his bloodthirstiness. She's got a bit of, I wanted a little bit more, but it was like the next issue, retconned, gone. And as far as I can recall, every time she's killed somebody with her power like that, it's lingered. It's not been something that was like, snap your fingers and it's gone.
Except for Carol Danvers, who stayed with her for like a long, long time.
Exactly. I wanted Roguepocalypse for the long haul, but that was just me.
Yeah, she should have kept it, and she looked really cool. I agree with you there. Excalibur has been inconsistent.
And Happy New Year to you, Kachung. I know you've got 20 minutes till 10 minutes till New Year's.
10 minutes for me.
Where are you, Dan?
Florida time.
Oh man.
So let's
be going off soon.
Let's talk about. I mean, the for me, the elephant in the room is this, and Dan's mentioned it before. This was like a perfect apocalypse kind of event. This was all centered around him as this. I don't want to say love torn, but he had this powerful backstory involving a love story involving his true purpose. I viewed this as an event centered around him and making him giving him a
tragic
proper,
character, maybe.
In some ways, there's definitely a sympathetic element brought into this. But for me, it was like a chance to give him the origin story that they'd never really given him. How do you guys feel about Apocalypse? I mean, I know Chris mentioned beforehand, he was like, they did rob me a little bit of the Apocalypse I missed, I loved. But for me, I felt like this was the first time in a long time that I was like, man, maybe I shouldn't have sold that Apocalypse first appearance. Like, I really loved that character. I forgot how much I liked him.
Well, that first appearance is terrible. Like that's not a good reflection. He's basically he was supposed to be the owl. That's my favorite. That's one of my favorite trivia is that character is supposed to be the owl, and then last minute they're like, let's just make a new character, and then that was Apocalypse. But yeah, I'll let other people answer that one first since I already did.
What do you think, Jen, about Apocalypse Now?
Apocalypse
Great movie.
Now. In the heart of darkness. So I think that I 100%. I feel like I don't have too much to add with this statement, but yeah, like 100%, I do think that this is the apocalypse romance story that we didn't know we needed. I do, because like when I think back and I think about like what were all of the plot lines that were going on, I could literally have like a 22 issue series of just them. I don't know, what's going to come of like Reign of X or whatever is supposed to come, but I would love to see it continued on.
So do we feel that way because Hickman wrote most of those strong apocalypse issues and he had Lionel Yu, Mahmoud Asrar with him? Like those were like flagship issues where like you got the best of the best of this in it. And like I feel like that's where Hickman was like going with it. Like X-Men issue 12, where it's just him and Genesis by that tree. I know Jen and I, when that issue came out, spent probably 20 minutes talking about all the feels of it, of their back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the art style, like Chris mentioned, is a big part of what made Apocalypse kind of work here. But for me, it's all the like connective characters, right? It's Summoner in that prequel issue, sitting down with it. Like, just I've been sitting here waiting for you, Dad, to show up. My grandfather, whatever he calls him, grandfather.
Yeah,
just waiting.
I want to give a shout out to whoever that artist was on that.
I love that issue.
That Summoner Wolverine fight where it's switching realities constantly.
Yeah. And then you get in when you actually start getting the other characters in, all the original Horsemen, and you get obviously Genesis and her, as a spouse. I think that's what drew me into this as a story for him as the main character.
I think that if those were some of your favorite moments, like if anyone connected with those moments in the Ten of Swords run, especially with the characters, the Horsemen, read East of West. Read East of West, 100%. Do I think that you would like it more? I don't know, but I do think that if you could read a 22 issue series of that, read all 10 volumes of East of West.
I
think I'm 3 volumes in, so I'm early still.
So that's where I am. But I read 3 volumes like when it was new, and I haven't gone. It was one of those where I will get back to it. So I haven't gone. So years ago. So I probably have to start from the beginning.
Requires your full attention to read it. It really does. Like it just
it
kind of draws you in.
Yeah, I loved it. That was my. I think that was because I wasn't reading Avengers or Fantastic Four, so I think that was definitely my first Hickman, was East to West, and it was just so weird, and I loved it. I love the art. I can't remember who draws it, but the art was great too.
I remember reading it and just thinking, this is poetry. Like I love
graphically violent, murderous poetry.
I mean, just Apocalypse by the Tree. That's
sorry. Here, let me blow that up there.
Just emo apocalypse. Just like, where's my wife?
Yeah,
I love her.
Man, I hope this is a real toy, but I think it was like someone that made the toy at home. I saw it on IG, and it's Apocalypse in his suit from X-Men 4, which is going to go down as one of my favorite Apocalypse moments. Apocalypse in a suit.
Yeah,
yeah, that was awesome.
That's a great issue. That boardroom issue.
Incredible. Yeah, that was a great issue.
So let's talk. I mean, there were some good fights here. So should we talk about some of these battles? Because I feel like at least that's going into it, what I thought it was going to be all about. And there definitely was a ton of them, but they were usually like a half a page. Some of them were given a half an issue or more, but for the most part, they were shorter than I had imagined. What did you think of the fights in this?
Some were really good. Oh, Chris, go ahead. Sorry.
Mine is only one line. I'm so happy that it just didn't become like a 1994 Image comic book, which I was really afraid of, which was just going to be like 8 pages of fight scenes where I'll go like, oh, the art's really cool. Yeah, where the art's really cool, but I think that's probably why I was a little bit more okay with the quirkiness, because it was like, oh, this is more clever. I'd have been fine with the fight scenes because I'd have had these cool panels. I like the 1990s Image stuff, but I'm glad it didn't do that. That's what I'm glad about. Even then, though, there were still some cool fight scenes, so it just didn't overdo it. It wasn't just like 10 of them.
Right.
Yeah.
I honestly thought that's what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be because we've got 10 swords and 10 different battles. So I literally thought that there was going to be a battle each issue. So I'm glad that it didn't end up like that, because that would have been maybe a little bit too formulaic. And even maybe because this series defied my expectations and what it was supposed to be, I still think that's why I enjoyed it, because it still managed to become something I enjoyed.
Definitely for me, like the Wolverine summoner fight, and just how it went upside down at times and just kind of twisted reality with all the different realities, was one of the standouts for me. I also, Gorgon, definitely against the 100, was the standout moment for that character. And Solemn doing the dick move of, hey, Wolverine, I made a deal, so he's fighting you war. By the way, he's drunk and he killed your son. Bye.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Pog and Magic fights, which for me, I thought the second fight was hilarious, where she realizes his trick and was like, just takes him apart and pulls out the little guy on the inside. I loved that reveal. For me, it was like straight out of Thunderdome. It's like Master Blaster and the little guy that rides him. I was like, this is hilarious, because you just couldn't see it. You didn't know it. That's
what this was missing. The guy going, walk away.
Yeah.
Walk away.
2 men enter. So yeah, I enjoyed that one a bunch.
Apocalypse and how they kind of tore into each other, and he was basically on his knees by the end, but he managed to be not weak.
Well, that's the big fight, right? That final issue is basically one giant battle, and it keeps starting over again with new waves of characters coming in and out. What did you think of that one, Jennifer?
I think that maybe I got flashbacks. It reminded me of pretty much every moment in a movie where they're like,
Endgame.
we're outmanned, we're outgunned, and we don't know what to do. And like Endgame, so it was a little bit tropey there, but I do think that like you said, it started and then ended, and then it was like, okay, is this going to be the final thing? Is this going to be the final fight? I expected a lot more people to die.
You're being
100%.
apologetic because they made that Cable issue actually make fucking sense.
Yeah.
Literally.
What about you, Dan? What did you think of the finale? Oh, sorry. Wait, it's midnight. Happy New Year.
It is midnight. It's New Year here in Florida.
2021.
The guns are going off. I hear them.
People are doing fireworks here for that. I guess they're doing West Coast fireworks for the East Coast because sounds like an explosion. I hear my kid crying. I actually got to go because he's hearing that stuff.
That's fine. Totally understand.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Good meeting you finally.
Did you see Carlito say, if I had to rate this show, it'd be Jen, number 1, Dan, number 2, Chris, number 3, the orange extension cord behind Chris, and then number 4.
Wow.
Love you, buddy.
I don't know how the hell I ended up at number 1, but I appreciate it.
Right?
Happy New Year, Florida, man. I am about to go wrestle a gator after this. Pogger pog.
Wrestling gators. So then, Dan, what about when it comes to this final issue and this sort of end game like moment? What did you think?
Okay, this might be just me. Did it kind of tie up a little too neatly?
Totally.
I appreciate it, but at the same time, I'm like, this is just way too neat. And of course, the sword comes down, and we had to go back to that. And by the way, sword coming out next month.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they were trying to set up some things, but for me, it was all about the Apocalypse arc, right? And when he comes to the realization that like he can be the one that takes over here, and that he can be the one that wins by surrendering.
Yeah.
That was a really cool little arc. And when you see, is it Iska change sides?
Yeah, which you called. You were just like, Iska's going to change sides. I thought it was going to be Solemn.
She has to. If she doesn't, then her mutant power doesn't work, right? I mean, obviously, she has to change sides so that they can win. Like, they can't win without her. And that's the moment that I think makes it all kind of work for me, is watching him, like, take the mask and put it on and just be like, I'm going to override this system.
I really liked it. Also, like, for Cyclops barely being involved, he's very freaking involved.
That's exactly what PJ is saying, that he's written in a self-confident, imposing fashion in that finale.
Very much so. Even then, like, everybody is just like, oh, where's Cyclops? I mean, the captain. I will give a shout out to the quiet councils in some of those side things, because that Hellions one with like, I vote that Sinister goes.
Yeah.
We need 5 hands.
Yeah. There's so many great little moments in this storyline. And but I love that quiet council, of course, is great. But I also like the final moments when they're divvying up the spoils, right? And who stays, who goes, and you get these 2 marriages, right? At the center of it. One that stays in Krakoa and one that stays, one that comes back to Krakoa and one that stays there on the other side.
But they didn't merge the 2 lands like they kept saying was going to happen.
Well, they did, didn't he? Chose as his person. He chose the other half of Krakoa to come to the island, right? That was Apocalypse's choice. Sorry, I just spit all over my computer. That was Apocalypse's decision of which mutant he would take as prisoner of war. He chose the other half of the island of Krakoa.
Okay, I missed that part then,
and Genesis chose him. And so they each took a mutant to go to the other side, and then Bay, is it Bay?
Bay or Bell? I think it's Bay. B-I.
Yeah, she's Bay. Bay chose to stay with her husband. I think that was her. She personally made that choice. But for me, it was these two marriages. There was, and again, I think the idea of a love story was a big part of this. Whether it was the island reconnecting, or whether it was Genesis and Apocalypse, or this new marriage, right?
As Apocalypse is walking off with his kids, I had the sad Incredible Hulk TV show music playing as he walks off.
Well played. Well played.
It was sweet, though. It really was sweet. Like, it just, there was something to it where, like, Apocalypse kind of got a happy ending, and you're just like, well, how are they going to destroy this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like,
Well,
he deserves this.
Right? But for me, it was almost like a way to move him out of the picture and say, you know what, I've done an Apocalypse story. I can move him aside, and Hickman can then go forward with where he wants to go through Reign of X, and then into, there's clearly, I mean, I don't know for sure that this is the end for him, but it sounds like he's supposed to do Reign of X and then be done.
Richter's bromance with Apocalypse, where he's all sad that Apocalypse is gone.
Right. So for me, I'm feeling like if he's finishing up, then Hickman does a year of Reign of X and then finishes with a big finale event that is the end of his run, which is going to be something probably a little darker and a little more tragic, versus this is like the middle arc of the overall thing, and it's going to be something a little lighter and a little more hopeful.
What's your prediction of like how this ends? Because I kind of have a prediction that stuff that Cable messed with on the sword, that's going to come back.
God, I hope not, because I really don't care anything about it.
I don't, but I feel like he put it there for a reason.
Thank you, Terry. Happy New Year to you, brother. Much appreciated.
Happy New Year's.
Dan, thoroughly enjoyed the All-Star Superman video. I have got to watch that. I'm sorry I have not gotten around to it yet.
It was a love letter. It really was a love letter. And big shout out to Victoria Read Across the Stars for her first real like live stream video where she was on the spot, like breaking down stuff, and she did great. She's going awesome. She's got a channel that she's booktube and comic books that she just started. So give her a sub.
Nice. I mean, I can fit us all three. Look, I can do that. Hey, Jen, look, you're not so tiny now.
I'm still tiny. I'm still very
So, I mean, I know we've kind of gone through a little bit of everything, and we're nearing the 1 hour mark. Are there any like last thoughts you want to talk about, or maybe what you think going forward is going to be where Hickman's going with this? Jen, what are your final thoughts here on this event?
I think just being a fan of Hickman, I'm 100% here for whatever it is. I've picked up a couple of titles, not that he's written, the one from not last week but the week before, that Vita Ayala, I always mispronounce their name. So I feel like I'm here for whatever House of X Jonathan Xman is doing. Can I call him that? Jonathan Xman. I'm here for whatever he's doing. I'm here for Reign of X. That's just, I know that, like, I wish I had more to say with it. I've been reading a little bit and I like what they're doing with, I feel like Magic and New Mutants has been doing like Strange Academy with like teaching these new like kids the rules. Yeah, so I really like that. I want to see more Magic. I want to see more Jubilee. I wouldn't mind seeing more Apocalypse. I always want to see more Magneto, but
that's your OnlyFans though.
That's my OnlyFans as well. It's Magneto and Dr. Manhattan and Swamp Thing. That's my, yeah.
I just flipped through the newest X-Men on my iPad real quick. There is an Iska appearance on Krakoa.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful that some of these characters that I get it, they're brand new, so who knows where they go, but I'm hopeful that some of these characters that were fighting for the other side can have some important parts to play going forward in the upcoming storylines, because obviously they're not on any of these titles in particular.
Prediction.
But it'd be fun if like a Solomon appears in an Excalibur issue, or if Cable bumps into Iska in a Sword issue or whatever, that like you get a little bit more of that.
Cable felt like he was in love with her because like, I can't ever be as good as you.
Hey, Zen Multiverse, good to see you, man. So my girls have been playing Among Us, the video game, with him on with the two YouTubers from Sharon's Life with Two YouTubers. So thanks for coming by. And then there's one of the two YouTubers. Hello, Cade. Thanks for coming by. All of a sudden we got invaded.
Speaking of your daughters, how scared were you when you saw them on our live stream the one day?
If you're worried about language, there's no word they haven't heard. There's just none. There's just
no. It was, we were just like, I don't know if I should be happy or mad because she should be doing homework.
It's hilarious. At this point, it's Sharon knows it's the life when you have YouTuber children. It's a whole new level, right?
I looked at Jen, I was like, uh-oh. We try.
Todd Christian says, I wouldn't be surprised if Hickman wants to put the genie back in the bottle before leaving, or just basically like set things back to the way they were. I really hope he doesn't, and that they stay on the island for a lot longer, that this lasts beyond Hickman.
When do we see Moira again?
It's clearly going to be part of the end game.
It's got to be.
Strongly believe there are things like Moira and Sabretooth and the Sentinels that are connected to the future verse that we kept seeing glimpses of. I think that's going to be all part of the end game here. Hi, look, Rena's here too. Hi, Rena.
Was there a better part than in House of X, or was it Powers of X, where they tortured Moira to death? And they're like, I want you to remember the Destiny lights are on fire. She's like, I want when you get reborn to remember this.
Wow. I don't remember. I've got to read that again. I keep meaning to buy the hardcover edition of House and Powers, but I always keep forgetting to buy it.
This Ten of Swords is up for pre-order as a hardcover for $70, the entire 22 issue. So I think it's kind of worth it for $70.
I think it's $100. I thought I saw it's $100. I know Amazon's like undercutting.
Discounted.
Yeah.
This is in stock trades.
Oh, I've got to check. Do they have Hoxpox there too?
They should, yes. If it's in stock and in print, they get it, or they can order it for you.
I definitely need to get one of those because I want to read it again and again and just bookmark everything. And yeah.
That's how I felt like when I was like, because I didn't reread it before we did this discussion. And I'm like, man, I wish that I had like a hardcover or a trade. And so it comes out the 20th. So in a couple weeks.
So you're gonna start doing the little note tabs and everything, so you can go back and be like, "This is an awesome part."
I feel like it's necessary.
Yeah.
Yes. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we dug into this because, like, I know, like, every week we were doing like breakdowns, and you would join us kind of in chat, kind of talking about this stuff, and you did your breakdowns on Comic Tom 101, which I read your theories and everything, and you're like, okay, that's relevant.
And I was definitely wrong on like at least half of what I said, but it was fun to kind of like try to second guess somebody like Hickman, who is so outside of the box that you're like, I'm just throwing stuff at the wall at this point.
Hickman, Jen, and I did the worst episode of the show on Hickman's works, and we can make fun of it now because
and the reason why is because I felt like the couple days before we did the episode, like I dug into every single book that I have by Hickman, and I still felt like we were so unprepared because all of my opinions were basically like, I really like Hickman, but like I hated this.
Chaos has a good comment here.
I saw this question: how mad will you be if they don't tie up the loose ends? And Carlito, enjoy that whiskey because Woodford Reserve is one of my favorites. That's a good one. Woodford Reserve, yeah. So yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts? Will you be upset if they don't answer?
Mad because I think every writer leaves loose ends for someone to pick up later. Claremont was like infamous for this, where he left like bringing Jean back. He left that out there to one day bring back. Maybe not intentional, but he left that loophole there.
Right.
And honestly, if something is, what does it mean to tie up a loose end, right? So even if someone dies and that's the loose end that gets tied up, they're going to come back. Like, they're going to find a way to come back. So no matter what happens, that loose end will come undone.
By the end of this, we get Old Man Cable back. That's my prediction.
That would be
I feel like that
awesome
would make
to me.
me angry. I disagree. That would make me angry. I want to see young. I wouldn't call him a himbo, but I want to see young Cable.
Oh, chaos.
I will agree, having gone back and reread now almost 20-something issues of his original run as an adult, really looking into it and studying it, breaking it down. He was making crap up like a ton. And I didn't mean I hated it. Didn't mean I hated it. But there were definitely issues where I was thinking, what is going on here? He was definitely smoking something.
He loved doing Cyclops' internal monologue. Oh my God. It was just so there I am in charge again. My optic blast. I got to tell my whole history in this word blurb.
For me, I didn't realize how often he had the narrator making fun of the characters. Like, nope, fool. Wolverine shows up at Jean's bedside in the hospital with some flowers, and he's like, the narrator is just saying, that's a horrible idea, Logan. See, told you so.
Yeah.
The narrator's burnt, and then Cyclops is having this emotionally upset moment because an X-Man died, and the narrator's like, don't blow your top up. See, look what you did.
Wolverine's mad because they're getting sent on vacation to Ireland.
There's a lot of vacations in those early issues too. Like Xavier's fly fishing, or he's fishing off the back of a yacht or something. That's crazy. Thank you guys for coming. The links to all three of these folks' channels, including Chaos, who's in the chat, were down below, so you can subscribe to all their YouTube channels. Anything coming up? Obviously, you had the Superman Morrison show just today, right?
Yesterday, Jen missed it because her bookcase destroyed her.
Broke me.
It ended up being a love letter to Frank Quietly. We're dark this week for the show. We'll be back next week, bigger and maybe better. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll have a lot of issues to talk about. And Gambit made his pick for next month's book club pick, and it's Scooby Apocalypse.
Yes.
Scooby-Doo?
Yes. The DC Scooby Apocalypse book.
Is this in the same universe that the Flintstones?
It was that
done?
same subgenre, yes.
So seriously, I did not read Scooby Apocalypse, but I'm telling you right now, the new Flintstones run was so enjoyable, and
That's
so
hilarious.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well,
for that.
you bought the My Little Pony Transformers, right? Which I was almost going to buy that on a lark, and it was hilarious that you had the same impulse and then actually pulled the trigger.
I really did.
Delaney talked her into it.
It's hilarious.
To be fair, though, I really don't need to be like talked into anything. It's just I have zero impulse control, so
right.
Especially when it comes to spending money on comics, but.
I don't want to imagine this, Zen, that Moira's last life is when Hickman leaves. That's no good.
That'll be sad because they finally made her interesting.
I know, right?
We have the Dune Over also coming back off hiatus, where we're going to be doing Dune Messiah, a shorter book, not going to take 12 episodes to do.
Mm-hmm.
Jen's in her sweet spot there, man. She is duned.
I'm doing it.
That's what brought us together, our Dune tattoos.
It is. Because we got the Dune tattoos.
And when isn't the movie going to be on HBO here in the next?
Denis Villeneuve is trying to sue WB with other directors and the Directors Guild to get it moved because it's a proper cinema movie and he wants it to be in the cinema. And according to him, the science proves that COVID will be gone by October.
The science says.
Yes. I haven't seen that science. I don't think Dr. Fauci has, but hey, maybe. Hey, prove me wrong.
I'd be excited for a Moira miniseries. Absolutely. Yes. I want to know what she's doing.
100%. Because they showed in the cradle when in X Factor, when it blew up, it said Moira's place, like basically. But they don't show Moira, but they showed her little Cerebro blow up.
Thanks, Brian. You too. And like Carlito is saying, and Rena is saying, Happy New Year, everybody. He's living in the future already.
Yes.
We will all be
2021.
joining him.
How does 2021 feel? Is it better yet? Do they have a cure?
No, weirdly, no. Although weirdly, read Across the Stars, she's been in 2021 for the last 16 hours.
Yeah.
She's
Now,
a new
but you got to say 2021 is clearly pretty great because you spent the whole time talking about Hickman X-Men on YouTube.
That's true. And
All of your 2021 has so far been spent doing that.
And I've been safe, COVID free, and spending it talking X-Men with friends. And we got to talk about F-Boy Cable.
Yeah, right.
We barely derailed this episode, which is a first for us. What we did to Rod when we guested on his show, we started getting some odd questions from the chat, and
the same Kurt. Basically,
notice I haven't clicked on Carlito in a while. I'm trying to he's trying to dig us back into Tenet, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. This show is not a palindrome. We're okay.
Well, it only took an hour for us to like even mention Dune.
It's true.
Unless
Also
it was talked about
record.
before I got here. Yeah.
No, it was not. It was definitely not.
There wasn't a lot of furniture in this either, so we know like Frank Herbert wasn't involved. So this dude in the middle of Dune just all of a sudden starts talking about filing cabinets in the middle of a desert cave.
Okay.
Like passionately.
I've never read a single Dune book. I've got a hardcover of the first book, and I've never cracked it yet. So I am
will challenge you. After that, you're fine. The first 100 pages, you're gonna have this book's insulting me. Like
it's smug or mocks me.
Happy New Year to you also, Lasso. You rock, brother. So we're gonna bounce out of here. Thank you all for coming. Happy New Year, and we'll see you all in 2021 when we get to where he is.
See you next year.